Hey everyone, welcome back to another Goddess of Victory Nikke video, and it's time to do some Eve testing. So I'm going to do kind of my standardized test where I try and limit the number of variables as much as possible. You can see I am currently sitting at core 4 Eve with a maximum affection rank of 30. I have her skills completely maxed out to 10, and then I have the 14 Bastion Cube on her. And for overload lines, unfortunately I wasn't able to get her chest and arms all the way to 5 yet. So she is missing a little bit of stats here. Keep that in mind when we are comparing things. But as far as the lines go, on the helmet we got attack, elemental, and crit rate. I might be crazy for having locked this crit rate on here, but I think crit rate is very important for Eve because her whole kit is based around critting as often as possible. So very good stats there. For the arms, I have elemental damage, hit rate, and ammo capacity. The hit rate is definitely a miss there. For the chest, I've got elemental damage, another miss with hit rate in the middle there, and then ammo capacity. And for the boots, we got another elemental damage, ammo capacity, and crit rate. So another really good one here. The problem is I only have attack on one thing, so I would like to get 3 other attacks on here somewhere. But that will come in time eventually. Anyway, so that's what my Eve is looking like. Very strong, but not completely optimized. You can see that we're pretty comparable here. We got same type of thing, a little bit more stats here on Red Hood and equipment, but not as many cores. Also good overload lines. And then for Rappy, oops, need to long click on her. For Rappy, again, fewer cores, but we have the extra stats here on the equipment. Also good lines, and again, they all have 10, 10, 10. And they're all using the Bastion Cube as well. So everything's kind of equalized. We're going to do a test here where we burst first with Eve, and then I'm going to do a test where I burst first with Rappy, and then we'll swap out Rappy for Red Hood and see if she can keep up at all. Unlikely not to. And then we're also going to test and see how big of a difference volume can do. So rather than using Siren, I will be using volume here as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and start our first test. So yeah, we'll watch the full first test here. Eve looks amazing. And even the movement they have on her like wing things, this is a really unique suit. I was saying this on stream earlier. Like the Planet Diver suit in the Stellar Blade game is one of the most unique character designs I've seen for any character in general, to be honest. But as far as how they function, the thing that oh dude, look at these icons right here. This is like the skills that you can equip to her exosuit in the game. They have so many tie-ins to what you actually see in the Stellar Blade game. It's great. I will be streaming the Stellar Blade new Nikke content soon as well, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Also, link to my Twitch channel in the description below if you want to watch on Twitch instead. But yeah, I'm curious to see how big of a difference the crit makes. Because I feel like if you can guarantee crits from Eve, it could be kind of nuts. I don't know if I have enough crit on her, but that's why we're going to try it with volume. Let's do a quick pause and check in. Alright, Rappy off to an early lead. This is kind of to be expected. Rappy can do more damage than literally anybody in the game. In most situations anyway. So we'll see. Eve, if she is the second best Iron Attacker, that's still amazing. If she's top 3 Iron Attackers, that's still quite good, because we need more Iron Attackers. Basically, it's Red Hood, Rappy, who's technically not even Iron, but does Iron strong elemental damage. And now we have Eve, and we're going to get Raven soon. All of the other ones have really fallen off. Like Maxwell rarely makes it onto a squad, even though she's always been kind of a more supportive role. Sadly, Snow White is not relevant anymore. You do have Bunny Soda. Bunny Soda is probably in the discussion for best Iron Attacker after you get past Rappy and Red Hood. She's honestly very, very strong, but I think, you know, I'm expecting Eve to at least be like comparable to Red Hood. We'll see what happens. again, I'm curious to see how much volume will change the balance rather than using these generic units. So when we use volume with Eve and Rappy, we'll see if that changes much. So that'll be the last test that we do. Coming into the last 30 seconds. Now, I do think that crit is still important to her kit. I'll just say this right now. People are talking about it in chat. But I don't know if that will really... I'm not worried about doing crit damage. I'm worried about triggering her skills from the good crit rate, if that makes sense. And then if crit isn't necessarily that important, that just makes it all the easier to build her, to be honest. Alright, let's see what we got. So total damage of 9.9 billion. Again, total damage doesn't really make a difference because I don't know what I did here last time. I've probably gotten stronger. But that's our baseline. It is a lot of damage. It is a new record. And Eve is definitely far behind Rappy. Again, this is to be expected. If she was as good as Rappy, that would be pretty bananas. I'm not going to lie. So I'm going to record these numbers, and then we'll go to the next test and see how she compares to Red Hood. Okay, so we're in the second test. We're doing the exact same team, except I just changed the order of Rappy and Eve to kind of reduce variance and see if there's a big difference with one getting to burst first than the other. So we did get a small increase of damage. It's noticeable, but again, there's kind of RNG. If we take a look at this, Eve did 2.519, which is 0.1 billion less, and then we got a slight increase of like 0.3 billion more on our total, just because we're getting a little more damage from Rappy getting to burst first there. So I'll go ahead and record these, and then we'll get into our third test. Okay, we're almost to the end of our third test. Again, this is about comparing Eve versus Red Hood, and what will it be? We're slightly low on damage. This is our lowest configuration yet, which totally makes sense because Rappy isn't getting to burst here. So we did a total of 9.377 billion. That's a fairly significant decrease, but not like super crazy. The important thing is comparative damage. So let's see, what do we get? Eve demolished Red Hood. Wow. I was not expecting that. Okay. So I did expect Eve to keep up. I thought Eve would probably be even better, but I did not expect that big of a gap. I thought it would be very close. Okay, so Rappy is still queen, doing even more damage even when she doesn't burst. I mean, Red Hood Rappy is just insane. Red Hood is not a weak unit. Let's just make that clear. Red Hood is not a weak unit. Eve outdamaged her fairly significantly by 25%. All right, I'm going to record this data, and then we will get to our next test, this time trying volume. Okay, we're about to end the test with volume, and basically we're trying to go in on crit rate here and see if this significantly improves Eve's damage or not. Now, overall damage went down by quite a bit because Siren herself is going to do a lot more damage. What we really want to see here is, did Eve's damage go up, or did it go up relative to Red Hood? So let's go ahead and see what the stats are. This time Eve did 2.249, which is her lowest damage score, but did it go up relative to Red Hood? It did. It did. Now, there's a lot of variance in here with crit rate, right? Because there's variance in testing no matter what, but especially when you're relying on crits, you're going to have even more variance. However, we can see that volume is helping Eve because although the total damage and the individual damage for all units went down without using the Siren, the gap between Eve and Red Hood got bigger when using volume. So she's benefiting a lot from that crit rate. We're going to do one more bonus round here of testing using the maids and volume, really doubling down on crit rate and see if that really makes a difference. Again, The total damage will go down because we're not using Crown. Also won't be able to use Rappy, so that's going to be completely irrelevant. We just want to look at the delta between Eve and Red Hood and see if the crit rate helps even more. Alright, we're coming down to the end of our very last test. We went all in on crit rate with Volume and the Maids. And again, we're going to be looking at the delta between Eve and Red Hood. Total damage is going to be bad because we're not using Crown anymore, right? But you're going to have to choose who you divide up your units with when you do a solo raid situation anyway. So that's not really the point. The point is Eve better when you're making all your teams with a all-out crit squad? So let's go ahead and see our total damage, 4.4. Yeah, it's pretty bad. But the delta increased a lot. All right, so Eve's damage went all the way up to 2.524, which is the second most damage that we've tested on. Honestly, all of her damage has been relatively similar. We've got 2.6, 2.5, 2.5, 2.2, and now 2.5 again, and they're very small differences, which is surprising because you would expect there to be more variance with crit specifically. But we can see that she's benefiting a lot from crit because we lost Siren and Crown, and Eve is still doing the second most damage that she did out of every test. It is now doing nearly twice the damage of Red Hood compared to when they were both being getting the benefit of Crown. So I think going all in on a crit build for Eve certainly has potential here. Again, this is early days, this is initial testing, but I think crit rate is very important for her. Yeah, let me know what you've cooked up with Eve. I think she's a strong unit. Looks like she is the second best iron attacker in the game, and I'm happy about it. I don't regret going in all in on cores for her, and we're going to get that core 7 by the end of the collab. But let me know, did you pull for Eve? Are you building her in a specific way? What squads do you think she is best on? Are you still saving for Raven? I will of course be pulling for her as well. Consider giving the channel a subscription if you haven't already for more Nikke news and testing, as well as a theory restart. I stream on Twitch and YouTube every week as well, and I'll catch you guys in the next video or on stream.